Good afternoon, councillors, staff, and members of the community joining us here in the chambers and online. Can I please ask everyone to take their seats and make sure your mobile phones are turned on silent? I now open the public forum for Monday, the 15th of June, 2026. Welcome to everyone. Public forum is an important opportunity for members of our community to speak directly to Council about agenda matters listed for tomorrow's ordinary meeting of Council, which will commence at 9 a.m. I'd like to remind everyone that today's forum is being live streamed. Your attendance here today is taken as consent for your image and voice to be recorded and broadcast publicly. A recording of this forum will remain available on Council's website for at least 12 months. In the chambers today, we have Councillor Dean Saul.
Good afternoon.
Councillor Alexandra Wyatt.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Councillor Ben Pakes.
Afternoon, everyone.
Councillor Adam Matchett.
Afternoon, all.
Deputy Mayor Annette Lawrence.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Councillor Julie Coburn.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Councillor Noel Selby.
Good afternoon, everyone.
And online we have Councillor Arthur Bain. And from Council staff, we're joined by Mr. Andrew Medal, our Chief Executive.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Mr. Daniel Thorogood, Director Corporate and Commercial.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Wesley Trotter, Director of Utilities.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Philip Hood, Director Operations and Planning.
Hello, everyone.
Ms. Vicky Thomas, Group Manager, Governance and Information Services.
Good afternoon.
And Mrs. Talia Webster, Governance Advisor.
Afternoon, all.
Thank you. I'd also like to acknowledge Mr. Michael Kemp, State Member for Oxley, who's in the gallery here today. Before we begin, Kempsey Shire Council acknowledges the land of the Dunghutti Nation. We pay respects to elders past and present and to emerging leaders who continue to guide us into the future. We acknowledge the stolen generations and the ongoing need to create inclusive and culturally safe spaces for all. This always was and always will be Dunghutti land. As we begin, I'd like to remind everyone that the public forum is a respectful space. Speakers are encouraged to share their views openly, and we ask that everyone listens with courtesy and consideration. Council values hearing from our community, and while opinions may differ, respect for one another allows us to have meaningful discussions that strengthen our Shire. I'll now call for any conflicts of interest from councillors. Councillor Saul.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, with your indulgence, please, I'd like to seek advice from the CEO. Mr. Middle, I'd like to ask your opinion, please, on 11.2, the integrated planning and reporting documents, in regard to point 3. Now, I do declare I have a business in the CDB and it has outdoor seating. So I'm going to ask you, sir, what your thoughts were, if I have to excuse myself or stay in the room, please.
Mr. Medal.
Through the Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Saul. The advice I've received on this matter is that you are covered by the relevant legislation, which enables you to stay in the room and discuss items such as rates and fees and charges, which this item falls under. So therefore, you do not have to declare a conflict of interest.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Saul. Councillor Wyatt.
I do. I have quite a few, actually. Firstly, on 9.1, I have 3. So number 1 is my uncle was the former Commissioner of Forests, which is the head of the New South Wales Forestry Commission. I was an adolescent at the time, and I consider that non-significant, non-pecuniary interest. Second, my husband is a former timber industry worker, like these people, I presume, who lost his job in his home as a result of the Northeast Forest Agreements. He received a substantial compensation package, including employment support, financial support. When the timber mill that he worked in closed, we weren't known to each other at the time. And I therefore received no benefit from those arrangements whatsoever. I consider this non-significant, non-pecuniary interest. And third, I declare that New South Wales State Government is my employer, and note a conflict of interest in matters involving the creation of the protected area reserve system in New South Wales. As I've stated in previous meetings, I manage those obligations to establish governance processes, and in accordance with Council's Code of Conduct, my own agency's code of conduct, and I consider this also to be non-significant, non-pecuniary. I have a conflict of interest possibly with 12.1, 9.2, and any others just in case. And maybe 11.6 for the same reason is, firstly, I put forward the notice of motion about 12.1. I declare that New South Wales State Government is my employer. Conflict of interest may arise because of that. My employer is DQ. However, I've never worked for the EPA. I don't work for the DPA, which is a branch within. Never have. There's no material benefit of me with this notice of motion. As stated many other times before, I manage my obligations through established governance processes, including declarations, an approved management plan, secondary employment approvals, ongoing ethical conduct requirements, and in accordance with Council's own code of conduct. And I consider this also to be non-significant, non-pecuniary, and shall remain in the chambers.
Thank you. Are there any other conflicts, councillors? Councillor Pakes.
Yeah, I'd like to declare a conflict of interest in 11.2. My family has had agricultural land and has been logged in the past, well before my time. I'd consider it non-significant, non-pecuniary. 11.3, the dredging area. I am a recreational fisherman in that location, use it a lot, have some local knowledge, but non-significant, non-pecuniary. 11.5, the flood policy. I reside on the floodplain, the Glenrock floodplain, and have done for most of my adult life. I probably would seek advice on that. In regards to the policy, I might just ask the question to the CEO on that one.
And I just want to clarify, your interests are in 9.2 and 3 for the Merrill minutes, not the IPNR and I can't remember what 11.3 is.
Yeah. I will just, can I go through that one first? Yeah, I would like to declare that I run a business in the Valley for the IPNR, so that might have some implications to that, but yeah, not a contractor, non-significant, non-pecuniary in regards to those ones as well.
So 9.1, 9.2.
9.1. No, sorry, 9.2, 9.3.
Yeah. Yeah. You just said 11 before.
Yeah, and then 11.2, the integrated planning and reporting.
Yeah.
And then 11.5, the flood policy update.
Yeah.
And that's it. But I just would take some advice from the CEO in regards to my residents and operating a business on the floodplain.
Mr. Medal.
Yeah. Could have done with some notice on that one, Ben. Sorry. I'm going to ask Mr. Thorogood to provide some advice to me, if I may. I'm erring that you're a person of a significant class and that this is not new information. It's just formalising existing information. But I'll take a second piece of advice on that, if I may.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, so the CEO stated it's probably would have been good to have some notice on this one. We can have a conversation offline afterwards too if we need to revise this. The flood policy, which is currently being presented, basically applies the flood controls which have previously been adopted by council. It does not vary or change flood controls, so therefore it doesn't actually change your circumstances. What you would need to consider is whether or not you believe you would receive an appreciable gain or loss financially because of that. And I guess the easy way, I guess, is to apply colloquially the pub test. What would people think of the front bar of the hotel across the road if you were to disclose that? And do you feel that because of where your property is, you have a larger interest in that policy than a general member of the public otherwise would? But ultimately, it's your decision as to whether you declare a significant or less than significant conflict of interest in the matter.
Yeah, so I'd like to, from that position, 11.5, I'll remove myself from the room. I won't be involved in that. So that's how I'll manage that. And also the 12.1 microplastics I've installed previously. I mentioned this previously at the previous meeting that I've installed gross pollutant traps in another shire in work in the last 20 years. So that's it.
Councillor Lawrence.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I just want some clarification, I guess, in terms of 11.3, given that some of us are ratepayers and residents So do we
It's the
need
same
to make,
principle as Councillor Saul with him
Yeah.
having a business.
so we're waived? Yeah, awesome. Just wanted to clarify. Thank
I
you.
think there'd be a significant flaw in the plan if we were unable to make the rates tomorrow.
Through you, Madam Mayor, it just might be worth clarifying that that particular question there is the same exclusion that Councillor Saul has benefit of in regards to the fees under clause 4.6 of the Model Code of Conduct for Local Councils in New South Wales. You do not have to disclose interests for the purpose of this part if your interest is as a ratepayer or a person liable to pay a charge. So the Office of Local Government recognises that all of you need to reside within the Shire. If you are unable to vote on setting fees and charges, we would not be able to form a quorum.
Are there any other conflicts, councillors? I hear none. I now invite our Chief Executive, Mr. Andrew Meddle, to outline the guidelines for today's public forum.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Public forums are to be chaired by the Mayor or their nominee. Each speaker will be allowed 5 minutes to address the Council. This time is to be strictly enforced by the Chairperson. Speakers at public forums must not digress from the item on the agenda of the Council meeting they have applied to address the Council on. If a speaker digresses to irrelevant matters, the Chairperson is to direct the speaker not to do so. If a speaker fails to observe a direction from the Chairperson, the speaker will not be further heard. A councillor, including the Chairperson, may, through the Chairperson, ask questions of a speaker following their address at a public forum. Questions put to a speaker must be direct, succinct, and without argument. Speakers are under no obligation to answer a question put under the previous clause. Answers by the speaker to each question are limited to 1 minute. Speakers at public forums cannot ask questions of the Council, councillors, or Council staff. When addressing the Council, speakers at public forums must comply with this code and all other relevant Council codes, policies, and procedures. Speakers must refrain from engaging in disorderly conduct, publicly alleging breaches of the Council's Code of Conduct, or making other potentially defamatory statements. If the Chairperson considers that a speaker at a public forum has engaged in conduct of the type referred to in the previous clause, the Chairperson may request the person to refrain from the inappropriate behaviour and to withdraw and unreservedly apologise for any inappropriate comments. Where the speaker fails to comply with the Chairperson's request, the Chairperson may immediately require the person to stop speaking. The previous clause does not limit the ability of the Chairperson to deal with disorderly conduct by speakers at public forums in accordance with the provisions of Part 14 of this code. Where a speaker engages in the conduct of the type referred to in clause 4.20, the Chief Executive Officer or their delegate may refuse further applications from that person to speak at public forums for such a period as the Chief Executive Officer or their delegate considers appropriate. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Meddle. Thank you to everyone who's taken the time to register and speak with us today. Your contributions help inform Council's decisions and ensure that community voices are part of the conversation. We have quite a few speakers registered for today's public forum, and I'll invite our first speaker up, Mr. Graham Carrad, speaking against 9.2, Merrill Minute supporting a sustainable timber industry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, councillors and council staff, I'd like to thank you for giving me the chance to address you. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge that I have been given the opportunity on the traditional lands of the Dunghutti people, pay my respects to their elders past, present and those emerging, and extend that respect to any First Nations people who have joined us this evening. They have been custodians for thousands of years, and I absolutely love doing my bit of custodianship to carry that forward. I want to acknowledge the Council for their generous community grants that keep us bushcare people ahead of the weeds and caring for country. Thank you. I do care for country, and I also care about a timber industry. I want, as the Mayor states, a sustainable industry. Wood is a great renewable resource. So I found it difficult to determine whether I oppose a Merrill Minute or support it. It's what is not being said in the wording in a couple of points in this recommendation that has me up here this evening. The lack of detail and lack of suggested vision or direction is why I think I would not be happy as a resident to have this go to a Premier. It sounds like we will be negotiating the status quo. I'm not sure the timber industry is unique here, and I assume there will be a series of letters covering other state industries and services in the Shire. Tourism, TAFE maybe, mental health. If we take each point, number one, that Council recognises the important contribution of the timber industry to the Kempsey Shire, etc. Sure, why not? Point two, supports a balanced approach to forestry policy that considers environmental sustainability and biodiversity protection alongside the needs of regional communities and workers. The B word. A balanced approach is always raised, particularly with resource extraction, but the environment has no voice. Ask Aboriginal people how they have fared with the B word in resource extraction negotiations, and they can talk. Well, if we give them a voice. Who is to argue the side for the environment in these negotiations? When weighing the environment against economic or industrial development, the environment almost always loses in the short term. In fact, it consistently loses because nature is exploited for immediate financial and infrastructure gains without pricing in its long-term benefits. Short-term balance arguments typically favour human utility. This occurs because these efforts treat the environment as a ledger of trade-offs rather than the foundational life support system upon which all other systems depend. The other bad part for the environment in the balance is that negotiations start with what you have at the present. Lots of the environment has already been lost. If the balance view had started 50 years ago, we wouldn't be in the situation we find ourselves now. The wording near the end of the background section of the minute states, this motion seeks to support sustainable timber industry while recognising the importance of environmental protection and biodiversity conservation. Why does it not read, this motion seeks to preserve the life-giving environment and biodiversity we already have, respecting the deep relationship between First Nations people and the land, and we further wish to investigate the appropriateness of incorporating a sustainable timber industry into that system. And what is Kempsey's model for environmentally sustainable and biodiversity protective forestry? We're not just talking at the mill level where you have clearly been impressed by Herbert's processes, and well done to them. The industry is far more than this, and I want to know that the continued plundering of native forests on public land being a real downside of the industry with financial losses and infringements and breaches at the expense of the taxpayer is not up for being part of the balance in the future. Softwood plantations make money, hardwood and native forest operations lose money. I have the numbers. Ask if you're interested. Breaches by forestry are destructive of the environment and fines don't bring back what is lost. Every illegal logging case means the public pays for the logging, the prosecution, the defence and then the fine. I don't want to keep paying taxes that support a loss-making, destructive to the environment business. Number three, recognise the importance of Australian-grown timber products in supporting housing. Yes, of course, and there's no faulting this statement. Given softwood plantations already provide between 85 to 90% of our saw logs, we need to better utilise existing hardwood plantations and the multitude of timber products as substitutes to complete the transition away from native forest logging on public land. Hemp plantations may be an alternative, and this valley has lots of evidence to suggest there's no problem growing it. Number four, directs the CEO to write New South Wales Premier. And here we want to be forward-thinking to give the Premier something to chew over before discussions. Show some initiative. These words that are here, these have already been rolled out by the National Party representatives when they visited Coffs Harbour Hardwoods about the power pole transition to composites. Let's look different to attract attention. The logging of native forest and public land has run its course and the move to plantations and alternative products must happen. I'd like to think that the Premier would be receptive to any suggestions that look to that direction rather than the less than prescriptive words crafted in this recommendation. I'd suggest that Council implores the New South Wales State Government to purchase already cleared or marginal lands in Macleay, establish plantations to enhance wood supplies in the valley, a non-controversial, sustainable source of timber with minimised transport costs to allow mills certainty into the future. I'd be very surprised if the brains behind Herefords hadn't seen the writing on the wall and already started their own plantations or plans for such given the number of years that the Great Koala National Park has been coming.
Sorry, Mr. Carried, your time's up.
Intention good, words won't sway the Premier. Thank you.
Councillors, do we have any questions?
I have a question.
Councillor Wyatt.
Yeah. You talk about like forest conversion, which I assume is from native logging, native forest to plantation. Is that what that means? What is forest conversion?
It's where, so when Forestry Corporation in New South Wales in its normal operations is overlooked by the EPA. in plantations, forestry corporations is its own police, and what happens in forest conversion is there will be a plantation and there may be adjacent or within that area native forest that is untouched. It's original forest, and that will be taken as part of it, and that's called forest conversion. It's a risk to the industry because when you go and buy your sustainable timber, if someone finds out that that timber is not sustainable, then and you pay more for it, there's going to be a lot of angry people, and it could jeopardise the future of that sustainable plantation industry.
Councillor Wyatt?
So is it sustainable or not? You mentioned that it's not sustainable. Like if people are looking for a sustainable product, is it sustainable or not? Conversion.
It's not the conversion. It's not the sustainability. It's the fact that you go to Bunnings and buy your sustainable hardwood, and it's taken from original forest. I mean, if people go in and find that out, the whole sustainable industry is under question then. So it's a risky business.
Okay, I get it. So it's about the label of whether the timber is actually from right. Yeah. Got it.
Councillor Lawrence, do you have a question?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Firstly, thank you for your beautiful acknowledgement to country. And I just had two quick questions. So what specific risks do you see for the community if this proceeds? And what alternatives would you propose? Because you mentioned in your speech some of the wording.
The risks for this community is nothing happens, I would say. The Premier is going to see this and go, oh, it's just another, oh, we support the timber industry thing. Whereas if what I say is go the way that the Premier probably wants you to go, and that is we want to find land within the valley to create plantations and not within forest, which could lead to forest conversion. We want marginal land or cleared land, and let's grow our own plantations.
Councillor Bain?
Oh, well, you can get it from Forestry Corp's annual reports. And, so for the past few years, the total hardwood forest normalised earnings have been minus $20 million, minus $9 million, minus $15 million, minus $29 million, and minus $32 million over the same period. In terms of, I talked about breaches and they, over the part from 2020 to 2024, the known quantified court fines and EPA cost orders total at least $1.7 million. And that's before counting Forestry Corporation's own defence costs or any unquantified cost orders. Does that answer that?
Councillor Bain?
Yeah, Forestry Corporation, New South Wales, state-based.
Councillor Pakes?
Thanks for coming along for a presentation, Mr. Crad. Can you tell me how many hectares of the Macleay Valley currently have plantation timber? And I asked this question in regards to having lived on a 3,500 acre property and driven past the plantation timber, but also in 2019 seen massive fires come straight through it and cause massive devastation. So how many acres or hectares of land in the Macleay Valley are currently planted?
You need your microphone on, Mr. Carrad.
Yeah, I don't know. But to make the softwood supplying so much saw log, my understanding is the number that's being tossed around is we need 33,000 more hectares of hardwood plantation. and native forest logging is not needed anymore. That loss is not incurred. So whatever works towards that throughout the whole state, I think the Premier is going to be more responsive to that sort of vision than just saying, oh, we want a good industry. It's just giving him something to look at.
Councillor Pakes.
Yeah, I'm really interested to know how much plantation has already occurred in the valley, and like not just to the Shire limits, but further up, whether there's been any more plantation. I am aware of it happening, but I'm not aware of it being harvested. So the time it takes for that to occur in this valley has been tested. There is plantation in place, but I'm not aware of it being anywhere near a harvest. Now, the time frame for that is what? What's a harvest time for a plantation that you suggest? How long does it take for a
Microphone, Mr.
Given
Carrick.
the small logs you see on the back of the trucks these days, I don't know, but 15 years. I don't know. But I can tell that, which I'm not sure is proper code of conduct. I don't know. So I'll just say I don't know. Yeah. But, I'm talking about the future.
I suppose that that information is really important in regards to what we're talking about here, and I'm up for alternatives if they're good. But my observation from what I've seen in this valley and what works has been that plantation has been relatively unsuccessful, and that's all I can say on that one. So, what about other countries? You see, New Zealand has massive plantation pine and
Softwood.
Softwood, yeah, and I believe the Chinese have bought most of that out. Do you think that going into plantation could be a thing that brings international investment and doesn't maintain local ownership if the government becomes that involved?
I have no idea. I just pretend I'm talking to the Premier now and what he would be receptive to. That's what this was about. So I don't know whether the internationals would come in.
Thank you, Mr. Carrot. If there's no
Thank you.
Councillor Selby.
Yeah, thanks for your thanks for your presentation. You did say that there's plenty of cleared land here in the Kempsey Shire. I think you did.
No, I said that's where plantations should go.
And cleared land.
Cleared or marginal land.
Microphone, Mr. Councillor Selby.
The cleared land in our Shire is mainly farmlands. And I think you'd find it hard to get them to sell it for that, just a point.
That's a point. But it depends where the government wants to go. What do we see as important? With all the money they lose every year, I'm sure they can buy some land.
That's up to the government, isn't it?
Well, that's who we're addressing. That's why we want to be proactive and get out there and stand out from anyone else. As I said at the beginning, it's a good intention. It's just, if that comes to me as a Premier, I'm going to go, it's just another letter of support for another timber industry. But, hang on, these guys got an idea. They want to be in it.
Councillor Saul.
Madam Mayor, point of order. Are we going to debate this issue?
Councillor Saul, I do believe some people are not asking questions. So, councillors, if you can stick to asking questions, not debating with our speaker. So, make sure your questions are succinct and without argument. Councillor Wyatt. Thank you, Mr. Carrad.
Thank you.
We'll now have Mayor Cassidy speaking for item 9.2. Mayoral minutes supporting a sustainable timber industry and regional employment. Just you've got your microphone on, which is perfect. Just make sure in questions you keep that one on for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak at this meeting. My name is Mayor Cassidy. I hold a Bachelor of Forest Science. I'm currently a PhD candidate at Southern Cross University, and I work as a forester with Hereford's Hardwoods. I speak today in support of the mayoral minute concerning the future of the timber industry and regional development. Firstly, I would like to commend Council for recognising that this issue is not simply about forestry, it's about jobs, families, small businesses, housing supply and long-term resilience of regional communities such as Kempsey. The timber industry has been part of the economic and social fabric of the mid-north coast for generations. Across the region, the industry provides a range of employment opportunities. Importantly, these are jobs that support local families and create avenues for young people to build careers without leaving the region. What is often overlooked is that the economic contribution of forestry extends well beyond the mill gate. Every forestry and timber manufacturing job supports a network of contractors, transport operators, mechanics, accountants, retailers and community services. When major regional industries weaken, the impacts are felt throughout the broader community. The mayoral minute rightly highlights the uncertainty currently facing industry. Businesses that operate over decades require confidence to invest in equipment, workforce development and infrastructure. When future timber supply arrangements remain uncertain, it becomes increasingly difficult for companies to make those long-term decisions. This uncertainty affects not only businesses, but also workers and their families. It is also important to understand that timber supply operates across regional boundaries. Timber processed in one location may originate from forests managed across multiple regions. Decisions affecting state forests in one area can therefore have significant consequences for manufacturing facilities and employment opportunities elsewhere. This is why policy decisions relating to forestry have implications that extend far beyond individual local government areas. As we consider these issues, it's equally important to acknowledge the environmental values that our community cares deeply about. The forests of New South Wales provide habitat for wildlife, support biodiversity, protect water catchments, and offer important recreational opportunities. These values matter, and they should continue to be protected. However, environmental protection and sustainable timber production are not mutually exclusive objectives. In New South Wales, forestry operations are governed by extensive environmental regulations, strict harvesting rules, and independent oversight. Harvesting occurs under detailed prescriptions designed to protect environmental values. There are approximately 9.95 million hectares of state-owned forests in New South Wales. Around 8.2 million hectares are managed within the reserve system as national parks and nature reserves, while approximately 1.75 million hectares are managed as state forests, and less than 0.02% of that area is harvested in any given year. Put more simply, imagine New South Wales state-owned forests equate to $100. We already put $82 in savings through the reserve system. The remaining $18 is actively managed as state forests, and each year we use just 18 cents of that $100 to produce timber. Importantly, that area regenerates. Harvesting in native forests is never land clearing. Forests remain and continue to provide environmental values while also supplying a renewable resource that the community depends upon. Sustainably produced Australian timber plays an essential role in housing construction, manufacturing and regional supply chains. At a time when Australia faces significant housing affordability and supply challenges, locally produced timber remains the most renewable and environmentally responsible building material. The discussion surrounding forestry often becomes framed as a choice between environmental outcomes and regional jobs. In reality, the challenge before us is to achieve both. We need evidence-based policy, meaningful consultation with regional communities, and decisions that recognise the social, environmental and economic dimensions of forest management. The mayoral minute does not seek to diminish the importance of conservation, rather it calls for balance, certainty and genuine engagement with the communities that will be directly affected by future decisions. That is a reasonable and responsible position. I encourage Council to support this motion to continue advocating for policies that protect our environment while also supporting regional employment, local manufacturing and community resilience. Thank you for the opportunity to address Council today.
Thank you, Mia, for your presentation. What's your PhD on?
The barriers to people, the barriers to timber production with agriculture in North East New South Wales. So all of your plantation questions, that's what my PhD is about.
And to Councillor Pakes' earlier plantation question.
Which one? There was a number. So quickly, about 40 years for a full rotation. There has been no additional plantation establishment since around 2005 as far as land size is concerned. A lot of the plantations that were established between sort of 95 and 2005 came on the back of the 2020 vision, which was a government policy that went hand in hand with the regional forest agreements. The regional forest agreements look to change how we manage our publicly owned forests across Australia, and it was looking to have good forest management and environmental outcomes, as well as timber industry. The government was looking to treble the amount of plantation that we had in Australia at that time. We still haven't managed to achieve that.
Thank you. Councillor Pakes.
Yeah, just to follow on from that specifically, the 2019 fires and its effect on those plantations in this valley. And I just wanted to note that 0.02% of forestry that actually occurs, of that, what's mapped? Because it's the regulation has mapped the areas that can actually be logged.
Yeah, it's all mapped.
That's even less than 0.02. That'd be What
So,
area of the state? You'd have that number.
No, it's not of the state. That's of the state-owned forest.
Yeah, so state forest and
0.02%
is what is actually logged.
Is what is actually logged. So, when you look at a forest management map, there will be all the areas that you can't go into. So there's all our protections for special species, waterways, the rest of it. So what you can get in and around, that is never clear-falled. So you go, okay, 0.02%, but you're not going in and taking all of that out. It's selective logging within that, and then it is regenerated. No one will go back into that for about at least 20 years. So what you're looking at is having these small footprints over the state that regenerate and you're not going back in there. Another really important thing to think about is by having that mosaic of areas that have been harvested.
Would you be able to finish your answer?
Okay. It does play a role in our fire management. So you've got areas of less dense timber areas with tracks through them where we can actually get in and backburn and attack fires if they do come in. There's areas of forest, especially in areas further north, I can't talk down here, where we've gone out of managing our forests for timber production, and we've got really bad weed problems in there now. So when the fires do take off, especially when we're in a heavy fire season where it's dry and drought, you've got these really high fuel levels. So unfortunately, national parks don't seem to have the money and the resources to go in and do their fire management in there, and that's when we get these incredible infernos.
Thank you. Are there further questions? Councillor Wire?
Yep. I'm not going to go to the obvious question. I'm going to go to this question instead. So the timber industry has known, no, I'm not going to go there. The timber industry has known since the 1990s through the Regional Forest Agreement process, which you are very familiar with, that the native forest harvest quotas are being reduced, and the government has invested heavily to support that. And the timber industry to transform. And you mentioned confidence, security and resilience, yet the legislation, and you provided quotes to support my argument, is that in place has been reduced since 1990s. So what is your transformation and succession planning? You've known about this since the 1990s. What is your transformation plan and your succession plan? And I have complete empathy, but what's your plan for succession and transformation?
Our plan for succession and transformation is to, so yes, we do recognise reduced levels of forest access. The regional forest agreements in the 1990s were meant to be the end of that. They were meant to be the stop. Forestry is a political hot potato that was designed to be a point where this is the industry that we have now. This is the size of the area that you have access to. that wasn't meant to diminish and diminish. Yes, we have a plantation industry that hasn't been as successful as it could have been. The first speaker spoke correctly about our pine plantations. Eucalypt plantations, subtropical eucalypt plantations, haven't been as successful for a number of reasons, including money into research, and plantations being pushed to regional to areas where the growth isn't so great.
Well, I mean, the question I'm asking is your workers and your staff is what is the transition process for them? So succession planning and transformation, given that the legislation has put in place this reduction and are moving into plantation and softwood to get out of native forestry. So I'm asking not what that is, but what have you been doing to support your staff into new industries, new innovation, new technology? Like what's in it for them? That's the question I was asking. What is that succession planning? How have you helped your staff in a succession planning process?
Okay, I do understand what you're saying. I am technically staff. So I am a forester with Herefords. Yeah, no, I work with these guys. I don't manage these guys. I don't have the answers around that for you. I'm sorry.
And just a follow-up question too. You mentioned, I started writing the question down, but you mentioned it yourself about the weeds. And being an ecologist and a forester, you would know about, bell miner associated dieback,
Yes.
which comes in after the lantana,
Yes.
after logging, yeah.
Yep.
And it does become a risk
Yes.
when there's fire. And I'm not sure about State Forest, whether State Forest has fire management targets that they have to achieve in terms of hectares burnt. But I've never seen anywhere where there is a long-term weed management plan or pest management plan in any state forest that has been harvested around here. So are you aware, does state forests go in and do active management to prevent BMAD, to prevent the lantana growing after that forest is logged? Pest work and animals too, actually.
Yep, I don't actually work for Forestry Corp, so it's not appropriate for me to say.
No, thanks.
Councillor Bain.
We're about 50-50 at this point in time and have been for a number of years. Yeah. No, I don't have that, but I can take that on notice if you would like. Absolutely not, no. No. Yep. So Herefords is a chain of custody certified company. As far as state forests resources are concerned, we have an agreement with state forests. We assume that they work within their rule set. That is our agreement with them. That's how we have our chain of custody through them. Would you like to know about private land chain of custody? Yeah, no worries. So we will not purchase any timber that comes from a property unless we have their full forest management plan and their state government certification through local land services. Or if we are buying plantation timber, then that will be a set of information from Department of Primary Industries.
Councillor Pakes.
This question is just specific about what
Herefords produce, the type of material produced. Now, I'll declare I walked around Herefords in about 2013 with a bunch of Germans who came over and did a vocational exchange.
Yep.
And at that time, you were producing parquetry floor. I thought it was going to America. Might have been brush box or that sort of stuff. What do you produce now? I know there's been a change there. Can you explain to people in the room what and how your product has changed and what you're actually producing?
Okay, so we are predominantly what would be termed a board plant. So we produce board products, so flooring, cladding, decking. We also produce green orders. So if you were to be putting up a shed or other construction like that, we can produce that sort of thing. They're our high-end products. We also produce dunnage products. They go into lower-end products, the pallet and that sort of stuff. The reason that we produce lower-end products is so that we can use all of the resource that comes to us. So nothing that comes on site in log form goes off site into landfill. So we utilize everything that comes on site all the way down to chip and sawdust.
And so what percentage, right to go? Yes. What percentage of that stuff goes into housing? Like how much of your product goes into building a house besides the pallet stuff?
So all of the high-end product that we produce goes into building a house. So I don't know if this is what you're getting at, but when you produce a board product, it is 50% stored carbon. That carbon is held in the product as long as it is in service. So like the timber that's in the walls here, for as long as they're in service, that will be storing that carbon.
And the useful life for that carbon. Like I live in a house that is over 100 years old and was built from hardwood off this river.
Yeah.
How long can a piece of 4x2 piece of Macleay Valley hardwood last? How long can that hold that credit?
In our home, as long as it's protected from moisture, indefinitely. Well, longer than us.
And compared to a plantation pine?
Plantation pine is different. But if it's in service, this is a different question again. If it's in service and it's protected from moisture and termites and the rest of it, it can last the same amount of time. But you're asking about two different materials. That's exactly right. So we have really good pine plantations in Australia. They've had lots of research go into them. We know what we're doing. We make a very good product. It's a commodity product. So it's a different product than what we are getting out of our native forests. Native forest products are high-end visual bespoke products as opposed to commodity. So these products aren't going into framing walls and that sort of stuff. They're going into floors and high-end applications.
Are there any further questions, Councillor Saul?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ms. Cassidy, a simpler question, if I may.
Please.
What would be the outcome if council didn't support our local timber industry, please? In economy and also for locals, please.
It would initially it would mean the loss of lots of jobs, loss of industry. It wouldn't just be the individual jobs of people who work in milling or manufacture or harvesting. There's research that shows that when you do have a reduction in an industry like forestry, you're having outmigration of people who have to go find jobs elsewhere, especially if they're looking to stay in the same industry and they're not diversifying. With smaller towns, you're looking at losses in community facilities, and you're looking at losses in things like how many teachers do you have in a school? How many doctors can you support now? Do you have a bank close? So there's those sorts of larger flow-on effects that we maybe don't consider as much. In a region like Kempsey, you're looking at a change in generational identity for some people as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Wyatt and then Councillor Coburn.
just want to follow. Sorry, so I just want to follow up on Councillor. I was going to call you Councillor Dean. Sorry, Councillor Saul's question. And he asked you the question about what happened if we didn't support this. So I'm hearing you right. So the future of the timber industry in Kempsey depends on whether 9 of us support that recommendation to vote to advocate to the Premier. So we have the power. The future of the timber industry is in our hands, not the state government, not the federal government, not elections. That's what I interpreted from what the answer to him. So this is an advocate. Yeah, that's what I interpreted. So is it in the, you said that, sorry, the future of the timber industry is at massive or at risk if we don't support this. And I'm asking you, is the power actually in our 9 people's hands?
Sorry, I took the question from the councillor as in what would happen if we were not to have. Yeah.
Thank you, because that is a really important point.
Yeah, so that's
Thanks.
a completely different question altogether.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Councillor Coburn.
Thank you. Thanks for your presentation today.
Thank you.
I guess my question is very in a similar vein to what both Councillor Saul and Councillor Wyatt were talking about. As far as policy decision making goes, do you believe that local government, for example, has any authority in regards to the policy around the forestry industry?
I think that you do have some sway. Yes. I think that it is important for you as a council, as representatives of your local people, if you feel that your community that you represent is putting forward a motion or opinion that is important to them, then yes, I do feel it is important for you to take that to higher levels of government if that is in your capacity.
So as a carry-on question from that, because we have no authority in the policy decision making.
I understand
around that.
Yep.
So I guess the next question is fairly obvious. So if we as a council decide to advocate for your particular industry, doesn't that open the floodgates for every other industry, every other person within Kempsey who believes they may be impacted in one way or another to bring that matter to council to make a decision as well?
Yeah, and excuse my naivety, but I thought that was part of what councils did. If people had something, they could bring it forward to their council or to their representative and discuss that with them. Whether it gets to a council meeting or not, I'm not sure how that works.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not dismissing
No, I'm sorry.
what you're saying at all. I just think we need to make sure that we have certain governance laws in the areas that we work
Councillor
in.
Coburn, you're here to ask questions that are succinct, not to have a conversation with the person presenting. And we have not just this motion, but a motion on dredging to support advocating for the local community, as another group has raised interest. So in the spirit of that, yes, if a constituent does have an issue, they are able to come and speak to their council about that. Councillor Selby.
Question. Is there a redundancy package from the state government if anybody in the industry is made redundant?
Usually when decisions are made, there will be a package that is released with that. What happens at that time and what that package is, I can't comment to that.
Well, I know there is a package out there and it's pretty good.
Councillor Bain.
I imagine that would have been a haulage subsidy that was in line with probably flood mitigation sort of impact. I'm unsure, to be honest with you. I wasn't with the company at that time.
Councillor Pakes.
My question is around councils in other areas, not ours, their impact on the forestry industry around dual consent. That is an area that councils can be involved. Ours isn't. Can you explain that to councillors?
Okay, so there are a few councils that do have dual consent. That's in their local environment plan. So this is one of the occasions where local council policy actually trumps state policy. So when you are doing a private native forest operation, you must apply to local land services, which is a state-based governance about getting permissions around your native forest harvest. They will provide all the mapping and the rules that go with the harvest on your property. There are a number of councils who also require you to apply to them as well, and you have to provide a full development application. This is prohibitive for a lot of people, and there are councils who have them who now would like to repeal that. Kyogle Council, for example, have had an application to repeal theirs with the state government for over a year now.
Yes. So just to follow on from that, what's the increased impact on one time, two expense? Is it something council should be involved in, or do you feel like it's an extra layer of bureaucracy not required?
It's time, expense, an extra layer of bureaucracy, of course. It's also taking away people's ability to manage their properties for forestry. So what we're seeing in council regions where they do have dual consent is that people who manage their properties for multiple reasons, usually agriculture such as cattle and then timber as well, they're using different mechanisms to go in and take that timber out. So instead of having a resource that they're managing perpetually as a growing bank where something happens or they get to a certain amount of time and they go and they do a sustainable harvest and they'll go back in 15 years' time, they don't have that opportunity anymore. So instead of seeing a resource there, what they're seeing is trees that are stopping them from having as many cattle as they could possibly have. So instead of going, well, I'm going to give up X number of head for this many trees, they're going and getting a land management certificate from local land services, and they're it's not clearing, but they're removing down to usually 120 stems per hectare.
Thank you. That's an important point around the dual consent.
Yeah, so we can have a conversation about this at any time if anyone would like to talk about this stuff with me. But we're not actually seeing better environmental outcomes. From my experience on the ground, talking to people and working in this industry, my background is actually bush regeneration. So I don't come at this as a, traditional forester or generations of whatever. Actually see all of the things that are going on within and outside the industry. And I don't believe we're getting better environmental outcomes from having dual consent.
And last question, this is one for the farmers in the valley who get a secondary income from logging. How do you see them as resource managers? Do you think they're good resource managers? Do you think they need help? What would you classify our farming community as resource managers in regards to forestry?
A lot of the time it's the generational management, and that speaks to itself. That you're getting people who have learned how to manage these forests and have they're invested in them over years and years. So they're looking at how they can manage their forests well because they want to have a continued income. There's a lot of up and down the whole coast, we're getting changes in demographics, and people who are moving into the region who are then looking at managing their forests. They're a different demographic, but they're often information hungry, which makes them really good managers. So they're getting all the information that they can, and they're talking and they're trying to manage as well as they can. Another really important thing is getting good harvest operators. So knowing, working with reputable sources so that you are getting a good management operation on your property.
Councillor Lawrence.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Firstly, thanks for coming in today. You've been asked a lot of questions, so I won't keep you for too long. But thank you again, and to the staff and to the contractors for coming in as well. I just wanted to ask, how many staff is there employed up at the mill, and do you know much about the contract? Because I know that you're only contracted to 2028. Is that right?
Everyone in New South Wales is only contracted to
Yeah.
28.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not an us
Yeah.
problem.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I know, hang on, how many? We have 53 staff at this mill. Hereford's has 3 mills in the region from Kyogle down, and we have over 300 staff.
Thank you.
Do you have how's your current contract working? So it is until 2027, and then what's happening after that? And is that contract with the state government?
It's with the state. So it's with Forestry Corporation, and it's until supply agreements last till 2028. So, and that's not just Hereford's, it's every mill in New South Wales that has a contract with Forestry Corporation for, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Matchett?
Yeah, just a follow-up question. I'm curious. So how does that negotiation work? Is that you're negotiating what land you'll have access to, how much? What does that involve?
Yeah, so the Forestry Corporation does all of their own harvest and haulage. So what we get is a landed at the mill product. We don't actually get to decide which logs we get and where they come from. We'll be allocated areas out of certain forests, and it will be a regionally appropriate allocation. So we're talking about haulage distances and things like that.
Councillor Bain.
Yep. So with the memorandum to stop logging, which is the Great Koala National Park, there was a reduction in availability of timber from state forests of 40%. Pentark had, this is to the best of my knowledge, Pentark had about 40% of the state's allocation. For whatever reason, the government decided to remove Pentark's full allocation. So that was their stepping back, and that's where they had a compensation. That hasn't, by having that allocation removed and also having their responsibility to deliver to Pentark removed, this is not worded very well, it hasn't affected other mills. So my guess is that by removing one large mill instead of a multitude of smaller mills, they still have, they're not producing a monopoly in the market, they're still having diversification.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Councillor Wyatt.
So first up, I just want to say you're doing a fantastic job answering the questions. Like, really good. You're nailing it, actually. Really good. You're showing that you have breadth and depth of knowledge of the industry plus your own skills. But so
Thank you.
well done on that. My question, so what happens after 2028?
I don't know. So
Does he know?
after 2028. So we're looking more heavily at private native forest. Hereford's themselves, we have 14 plantation and native forest properties. So we grow our own timber as well. So you were asking earlier about what are you doing? We are actively growing it and managing our own timber. So we can talk about that at any time if you'd like to. There will still be private native forest, and hopefully there won't be a shutting of all state forests in 2028. Hopefully, we make better decisions than that, because not managing our forests is still a management decision and it doesn't lead to good outcomes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You've answered so many questions. We'll let you. Thank you. We'll let you sit down. Thank you. We'll now have Matt Dyer from Barrelville Sawmill speaking for 9.2 Merrill Minute, supporting a sustainable timber industry and regional employment.
Madam Mayor, councillors and members of the gallery, thank you for the opportunity to speak. Mia just about covered me right over there. Yeah, well, I own a sawmill at Barrelville, 15 staff, etc., etc. About another 15 contractors and waste for the power generation up at Harwood and those areas. With the advent of the koala park, I did get a token payout from the government. Unlike Hereford's, I had a different agreement, and in the area where I was one of the sawmills selected to be paid out as such. But in effect, all that has done is rob me from being able to sell my business. We're in one of the more impoverished areas, socio-economically. And up until this year, I was donating to the local area $30,000 to $40,000 for Aboriginal football teams, little athletics, short track. This year with the events, that's gone. Yeah. And, you know, a lot of things that people don't think of, if the freight isn't going from the local communities to the cities, any freight that has to come back is going to be more expensive because they've got to pay the freight, double freight on it. With the, and also with this koala park, timber's one of our biggest imports. So is it morally wrong to look at these other impoverished countries where they have no laws, rules or regulations where they're logging to bring it in and fill our needs? It's just, yeah, it's a bit hypocritical, I feel. And plus the timber areas that they're taking for this park, the natural events that are there have always been taken care of anyway by state forests, etc. So by putting it in a national park isn't going to benefit as such. And on the 2019 fires, in our area, the fire was burning for 3 weeks in the national park with no attempt to contain it or take a dozer in there, back burn it. And then, of course, it escaped and there was loss of life. Yeah, and everyone was jumping down in 2019, 2020, but a lot of that's forgotten. And in that period of time, then the harvesters were put into largely plantation blocks because so much of the native timber was burnt. So that has also robbed some of the rotation of the plantations through those fires. Another thing happening in our area, the green movement is now jumping all over the plantations. That's the Wild Cattle Creek, Dorrigo area, Bellingen area. Yeah, there's a lot of conjecture there, and it costs Forest Corp a lot of money in legals to fight this and replay in different areas, etc., etc. I'm also private property base, supply national parks, many other things, and national parks always want tallowood when you cut timber for them. So I also supply Hereford with other companies, and Yeah, I haven't closed down yet, but my options are walk out the door or walk out the door. And there isn't too many jobs in our area. Plenty of empty shops, but not many jobs. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dwyer. You said that you have 15 staff
Yes.
working for you currently, and I guess in the next 18 months, how do you see the future for your mill and for those workers?
Well, the opportunity's there. It's a very profitable, I've got a very profitable business, but that's how frustrating it is because there's no security. If I'd rather be a dress shop in Kempsey, at least I could sell it. You know, yeah, but there's just no opportunity. If I walk out, it's gone.
And in terms of contractors,
Um,
how will they be impacted?
Well, they'd probably have the opportunity to work for other companies, but also the EPA are coming down pretty hard on some of the contractors, almost to the point of harassment. And that's a worrying thing because the Greens are happy with what they've achieved, but now they want more with the plantations. And I think it'll only be with what's going on with the EPA, in particular, one contractor, he says, I've had enough, I don't want to do it. And a very good contractor. So they're putting the pressure from within, but all it'll take is one or two law changes in the LLS, and that could render private property unviable. It wouldn't take a lot.
Councillor Pakes.
Thanks for coming along and taking the time. I can see you're passionate about it, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Tell me about what you produce. What sort of timber do you produce? What's it used for? And who's your main customers?
Well, I produce everything from palings, fencing for Melbourne, Brisbane. I supply high value timbers for Hereford, stair treads, and boards, whatever's they want, I try and fulfill. Mainly out of blackbutt. Other species I might put into girders or whatever's orders are about for it. Yeah.
So I'll summarise that as housing. You're putting into housing.
Yeah. Well, probably 85% of it is housing. Yes.
What do you see? What's the solution outside timber? If you're not going to sell timber for houses, what are you going to use?
Well, I suppose it's steel, isn't it? Or you import it. You know, and yeah, we've got some of the hardest regulations in the world to adhere to, but the harvesters manage. But, you know, what are you going to go over the Amazon? Clear it?
I'd like to ask you about regulation. Now, my dad's farm was harvested for brush box many years ago, and it was probably around that time in the 90s, maybe early 90s, 92, 93, around that time. And we thought it was regulated then. What's your comment on history? You've been around for a while. What's your comment on history?
Regulated then, but yeah, you probably wouldn't be able to get that box now with the new regulations on the buffer zones and 10 metres. When a gully first comes and joins another one, the first gully's generally got a 10-metre buffer on it, the next one 20. When there's the third one join up, it could be 30 metres each side. So, yeah, there's quite a lot of restrictions, and you got to read it thoroughly, otherwise you could fall into a trap real easy. Plus the Aboriginals, you know, there's a big cross-section of knowledge there.
I hear you. Just your workforce, what's your demographic of your workforce? What age people work in your industry or in your 15?
Yeah, well, from about 18, I've got blokes, you know, 60 odd. So, yeah, and I think there's 7 or 8 Indigenous chaps there at the moment. Yeah, you know, and for the local area, it's a great thing.
And with indulgence, Madam Mayor, Men's Health Week starts tomorrow, and I've encouraged all the blokes in my crew at Fire and Rescue to go and get a health check. Go to the doctors, get a prick in your finger, please. If you can do anything for the people in your employers,
Yeah,
Men's Health Week this week.
That's a good idea. I'm actually going to the cancer doctor.
Councillor Wyatt.
Yes, please. So I have two questions, but you heard my conflict of interest about my husband's been in your exact position.
Yeah.
And I have some, and about that closure of those 4 sawmills that he was a part of as well. So you mentioned that you got a compensation package as a result of as a result of the gazettal or creation of Great Koala National Park. Is your timber mill still open or closed?
Yeah, it's still open. What it was, and I did sign a confidentiality agreement, all that, but I had a D-class agreement with State Forests or Forest Corp, and that is what they designed that they wanted to get out of an area, and so I got a small compensation for that.
Mhm.
Whereas if they would have closed me down, I would have been able to get a redundancy for each one of my staff. And some of my staff, one had been there 20 years, 18, 15.
That was going to be the second part of my question is, so you said you had 15 staff.
Yes.
I mean, the government has said, whether we believe them or not, but the government has said that there is compensation packages. You can Google it. It's there for staff. But have any of your staff, or will they be, or are you negotiating with compensation packages for them, which includes not just the money, but like I asked your colleague here, is the succession planning?
Yeah, well, there's $9,000 for each person for retraining, but I don't meet the criteria because I've still got logs. I'm still working. It's only as if I didn't have the logs and closed down, they would get that benefit.
Follow up. So my next question was going to be around, Barraville is not in Kempsey. So what kind of why are you presenting to us and what do you sort of hope to achieve? However, my question now is more around, do you think it's better, our role in advocacy is better to say to the state government, what's in it for our staff, our people?
Of course.
That's where don't you think, shouldn't we be also saying, what's in it for our people? Where's the money? Where's the industry? Give us the money.
Yeah, well, I'm sure, sawmills and different businesses in the area sponsor different things. Well, like I just said, I've cut it out, sadly, because I'm uncertain. I can't get my retirement by selling my business for anything like it's worth. It should be worth $4, $5, $6 million, and it's only worth ground value. And that's part of the reason why I come over here. That's my outcome from the koala park, even though I'm still operating.
Thank you, Mr. Dyer.
Just the koala park, or as we were talking about before, in 2028, the agreements with forestry would change anyway, and they could end altogether. But
that's a possibility. Yeah. But by then I want to retire anyway. I'm not going to live forever.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dyer.
Thank you.
No, we're not done with you yet. Sorry. Miss Councillor Saul.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Very brief. Sir, you mentioned earlier that because of these changes, you've had to cut out sponsorship to the Barraville community. Can you enlighten us, please, on the effects on that and the effects on the economy? Because it does all flow through. Money rolls around. Everyone sort of has to live off that.
Well, it's just my uncertainty about the future. Like, I'm concerned about private property landowners. Like, in my mind, things aren't always as seem, and the rules and regulations to log in private property have got harder, as we spoke before back in the 90s, whatever. It's a lot more difficult now, a lot more restrictions. So I'm just wondering, and the green pressure on the plantations, etc. Once, if they secure that, well, they're going to start on the private property. They're going to make it unviable to do so. And it'd only be a quick stroke of the pen to do it.
Are there any further questions, councillors? There are none. Thank you, Mr. Dyer.
Thank you very much.
We'll now move to 11 point, Mr. Lindsay Kay speaking against item 11.1 rescission motion code of meeting practice.
Councillors, citizens, I'm speaking against this because I think that as it stands, it needs to be amended. Where are we? I don't really know. There was no business paper. What is the current code of conduct? That this meeting's under? That the next meeting will be under? What's changed? What hasn't changed? This has wasted more time, pixels and paper, and what for? What has been achieved? The community's been ignored. We're going to go apparently with whatever the Minister of Local Government says. And if we are surrendering to external control by the New South Wales State Government Minister, then it begs the question, do we really have local government at all? The point of newly elected councils promptly endorsing codes of conduct and other procedures is to ensure that they are in step with the wishes of the people who elected them. The path from electorate to the minister is much less clear. If the minister does something that the local ratepayers don't like, they have to wait till a state government election to vote out that government, and presumably the next government will that's voted in might have a minister with a different opinion. He's completely unaccountable. There is a role, obviously, for the Department of Local Government for structure and oversight, but interfering at a grassroots level in the lowest level of government represents a counter to the very purpose of local government. Councillors take on serious responsibilities upon election, and to be dictated to on such minutiae is absurd. Perhaps the minister should focus more on reversing cost shifting and lobbying internally for a better deal for local councils, rather than worrying about the code of conduct and whether we can ask questions. The local people went through a long process to get the ability to ask questions of councillors at meetings. This has all just been thrown away. As I say, what a waste of our time. What a waste of the community's time. This community has enough trouble getting to relate to the council that most people would not be able to talk at this public forum because negotiating the obstacles that have been put in place for them is just too hard. In opposing this rescission, I'm advocating for an amendment. That being a strongly worded missive is sent to the Minister of Local Government to pull his head in, keep in his lane and help ratepayers to get a fair deal and a clear voice. Or words to that effect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kay. Just for our timber industry that's in the room, we won't make a decision until tomorrow on what's come before us. I just wanted to let you know that before we keep moving forward. But thank you, Mr. Kay, for your presentation. Are there any questions from councillors? I hear none.
Oh, just an offer, Lindsay, that if you don't understand the technicalities of this one, I'm more than happy to speak with you in the morning before the meeting and try and explain what I think is going on.
Well, that would be very generous of you, but I'm sure that it'll all come out in the questioning in the meeting and I will be here for it. Thank you.
We'll now have Mr. Mark Walker speaking against item 11.2, 2026-27 suite of integrated planning and reporting documents.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, councillors, fellow ratepayers and staff. I want to talk about garbage, specifically garbage fees. Council is proposing to increase these fees per lot from $600 to $733. What I want to know is, where is the actual incentive for residents to reduce their waste? There is none. All residents get charged the same flat fee, regardless of the volume of garbage they fill their bins with and regardless of the frequency their bins are collected. So whether I put my bins out each week or not, whether the bins are full or not, I'm charged exactly and precisely the same annual fee as Joe Bloggs across the road, which would be fine if we both added the same amount of waste to the waste stream. We don't. I separate everything and reduce the amount going into council's waste stream as much as is humanly possible. So I put out no more than 12 full bins per annum. Joe Bloggs has a wife and 3 kids and puts out 2 full bins every week, often overflowing, utilising the maximum possible bin collections of 104 bins per annum. So on current rates, Joe Bloggs is effectively paying just $5.77 to council per bin collected to haul away his household's waste, while super careful, super separator me is effectively being charged $50 per bin collected. So councillors, here I am doing my bit for the community, actively, conscientiously and carefully separating out everything that can be removed from the waste stream to avoid council having to pay additional tonnage charges to the EPA. Where's my reward? Where's my incentive to continue doing it? Or more pertinently, where is the incentive for anyone else to do more to separate and remove waste from council's waste stream? There is none. And this is a problem we need to solve. We need solid incentives and easy methods for residents to do the separation themselves and so reduce the amount of waste going to landfill. And while this may not be mission critical today, I'm also aware our existing waste disposal facility is close to full. So we will soon either have to pay through the nose to send our waste elsewhere or find and develop a new site somewhere in the valley. So there is serious incentive for council and community to come together and find ways to reduce waste going to landfill. And that means providing incentives and simple methodologies to separate waste into various recyclable streams. Until recently, thin film plastics were a major issue after the previous recycler went bust. Major retailers have only recently renewed collection of thin film plastic waste at local supermarkets. But other recyclables are not being targeted in any cost-effective way for residents and ratepayers. Government initially targeted the lowest hanging fruit, PET soft drink bottles and beer bottles via the return and earn machines, of which there are 2 in Kempsey, plus the bulk facility on South Street. There's clearly money to be made collecting bottles. So why isn't council doing it and reaping the rewards? Another of my bugbears is foil-coated plastic pill packs. They can't go into the normal recycling stream, requiring specialised facilities to separate plastic from foil. As far as I can determine, only Bloom's Chemist at Southwest Rocks is accepting them, funded by their head office as a community measure. None of the chemists in Kempsey do it, but they might if council was co-sponsoring it. That's what they've told me. Council already has a team who empty the street bins. So getting them to collect pill packs from chemists would be a simple addition to their existing staff. No additional staff, no additional costs. But for things like this to work, we need households to separate at source. We can do more, we can do better, and we must find ways to make it fair to all residents so single-person households like mine are not effectively subsidising the profligate waste habits of the Joe Bloggses of the world by providing an adequate incentive for residents to reduce the waste being collected. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker.
Just so elected members are aware, Mr. Walker's given us a copy of his speech, so that will be emailed round to you after the meeting.
Thank you. And I have to concur with you. I don't think the average Joe does know how to manage their waste appropriately. Councillor Wyatt.
Yeah, I'm glad you're getting a speech. That's very great information to think about and ponder. Thank you for that. So an incentive system. So what are you proposing? And B, how do you think council could do it?
Well, there's probably numerous things that we could do, but one that struck me as being immediately easy to do would be to charge per bin collected rather than an annual flat fee. That would immediately provide an incentive to people not to put bins out as often, because the more often you put it out, the more you get charged. So only those who have to put it out would put it out. So when it's full, basically. It would be relatively simple to do. A barcode reader on the big lift-up arm on the truck, and barcode stickers on the bins, which I think we still have. Very simple to do. Council could even flick past the payment system to the contractor. One less thing for council to worry about. But maybe not.
Councillor Coburn.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Love your vision of the circular economy. Big fan. How do you think council could embed more knowledge into the community about the benefits of recycling, first of all?
Well, obviously, we'd need to have some sort of an education system. We'd probably need some online resources that are easy for people to find. Council's website is not renowned for being easy to find stuff. But also, essentially, providing an incentive for people to do stuff. Now, I mentioned in my speech the plastic, thin film plastic recycling. When that restarted down at Woolies in town, there's a bin about that size in the front foyer of Woolworths, and every time I've walked past it, it is chock-a-block full of little bags of rubbish that people are collecting from their homes. So there's clearly pent-up demand for that type of service, something that's easy, accessible, doesn't cost them extra, they don't have to drive miles to do it, that kind of thing. We need the incentives and we need to make it easy.
Councillor Pakes.
Well done. I like you're spot on in regards to volume being the matrix of charge. Financial incentive for the bottles is what's brought about human behaviour change. Are you aware of any other options around Australia, around the world, that actually measures the weight of the bin? Every time you go and load a quarry truck up, you measure the weight of the load that goes into the back of your truck so you don't overload it. Is there any, do you know of any?
Short answer is I'm not aware of any. Long answer is people who have tried it have found it really difficult to do. Theoretically, it's simple, because if you look at line of load trucks in pretty much every mining operation that has trucks moving stuff around, the truck's suspension weighs the load, like with load cells.
Next question is, have you considered having the waste charge removed? Can you have your waste charge removed from your bill because you're so conscientious and you pay?
If you want to make the offer, yay!
But can you? Do you know whether you can or cannot?
As far as I'm aware, the way the Local Government Act is worded and the regulations around the charges that councils can make is that council's required to make a charge. So that is flexible, as I understand it. Mr. Thorogood can probably tell you more about that at a later time. But yes, it could be done. But for example, in my specific case, I could take my 12 bins per year to the tip in 3 lots of 4 bins in my trailer. With the 2 freebies that I'm currently getting from council, hint, hint, I don't have to pay for 1 load out to the tip, which would cost me $23. So that would take my entire waste collection system for the year from $733 to $23. I'm up for that, if you guys are willing to allow it.
That's the calculation I made. So have you got a line of questions you'd like asked
around this? Because I think you make a fair point, and I think it's legitimate.
You can't ask questions. Sorry.
Could you provide us some questions you might like answered in this field? Not now, but in your own
Like
time.
a little white paper or something?
Well, you've raised
one
a good
page,
point.
2 pages.
We can't ask. So my point is that we can't ask the questions to the directors at this point because that's not the forum. But we can either through questions or notice, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. I could make lots of suggestions as to how we can do things. I'm aware that we already have some collection facilities upriver. I believe there's some bins at Willawarra that are like bulk bins for collating stuff. So it'd be more a case of putting more facilities in like that. I recently visited the Campbelltown Council's what they call a waste transfer station. It's basically a big shed with a concrete slab and a whole bunch of little bins and a couple of guys oversighting it. And they had everything from little tiny AA batteries through to car batteries, car engine oil, transmission fluid, brake drums, wheels, tyres, old electronics, old phones. Everything was there in its place. And the plant was just humping. There was people coming and going the whole time I was there, about an hour. It was really good. So we could do stuff like that.
Are you aware of any plans to this end?
In this council? No one's told me anything.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. I guess my question is around equity, because a lot of the services that we offer, particularly when it comes to waste, whether it comes to using the pool, whether it comes to using our public facilities, even our library, I pay for those services as a ratepayer, but I'm not necessarily a big user of those. And in terms of equity, I'm happy to contribute those things to my community so others can have access to that service. How would you see incentives working in another way towards combating waste? Rather, how could you disincentivize people to to not dispose of their waste properly? Would you feel like fines or having a bit more oversight of people disposing of their things a bit more adequately would work?
Probably not much, really. I mean, we still have fly tipping around Kempsey. I'm sure council staff here who know about that know we do have fly tipping. So it's important that we don't discourage people from putting their bins out and putting stuff in the bins. But it's a case that, and you talked about equity, I'm not the only single person household in the valley, and there are thousands of 2-person households who are effectively, and this is a legal term, effectively subsidising those who are putting out 2 full bins every week. And I don't think that's fair. You talked about equity. I'm saying to you, all of you, I don't think that's fair. It should be a fairer system. So it really should be more like a user pays system, or as close to that as we can get. And the only way I can see we can do that is by charging per collection, because we can't weigh the individual bins. But if you can figure out a way to do that, I'm up for it.
Councillor Lawrence.
Thanks for coming in to speak this afternoon. I just wondered, do you think, like, if that was in place, do you think then there'd be more people like not wanting to put rubbish in their bin? So in terms of obviously how hard it is in terms of living these days, like people, there'd probably be more of the, what do you call it, fly tipping or dumping rubbish and stuff, or leaving rubbish out around their accumulation of rubbish around their house more so than wanting to put it in the bin.
If we tried to do something, and this is what's happened elsewhere in the world, I've looked at a few reports on this, what's happened elsewhere in the world when councils and local government authorities have tried to do things like weighing the bins, then that doesn't work. It's a perverse reverse incentive. It incentivises people then to not dump. But if you're talking about filling the bins that you already have available, using the slots that you already have available, 2 bins per week, whatever it is, you could maybe look at things like replacing the small bin with the slightly larger bin. I can't remember what the litrage is. It's 85 and 115 or something. The most complaints I've seen and heard about this subject is that the people who have big families and produce lots of waste, let's not go into the morals about why they're doing it or why they're not doing it, but they complain about the fact that the bin overflows before the end of the week. before the end of the fortnight, because the red bin's only collected every fortnight. The green bin's collected every week. Red bin and yellow bin alternate fortnights. So if we had that, something like a little carrot for people, but a lot of the people at the moment, because they've gotten into the habit of it, it's very much a social change thing that's required. They just put their bins out every week, regardless of what's in the bin. So that the bin can be this full, or this full, or this full, and the truck has to stop and pick up the bin every time, no matter what's in it, because that's the contract, right? So if people were...
Sorry, your time's run out, Mr. Walker.
Okay, so let me just finish the sentence. If people understood that it was still going to be collected, they would not be disencouraged from putting the rubbish in their bins, I don't believe.
Councillor Coburn.
Follow-up question to what I originally started on. Do you agree that if council changed the way that we handled rubbish, so rather than council looking to that user pay system, but if we looked in the true sense of a circular economy, where council looked at collecting rubbish differently and making the money from the on sale or the on transport of the recycled goods elsewhere so that they can be made into other economies of scale? Do you think that's something that, the future would work? So people can go in and they break their rubbish up and take it to the transfer station. Campbelltown sounds like a brilliant example.
It is, and thank you for the question. It's a really good question. The idea of the circular economy is that we stop treating our refuse as waste to be disposed of and begin to look at it and treat it as a resource that we can make money from. Now, as I mentioned in my speech, collecting bottles is apparently lucrative. The facility on South Street, I've never seen less than 4 people working there. If each of them's on $60,000 a year and the boss is making $200,000 a year, there's $300,000-$400,000 a year plus the rents coming out of that business. It's a good business. Why isn't council making that sort of money out of it? Like we should be. Maybe we haven't had the incentives or the wherewithal at the time, but there's no time like the present to start looking at things differently.
There's no further questions. Thank you, Mr. Walker.
Thank you.
We'll now have Sarah Barrell speaking for item 11.2, 2026-27 suite of integrated planning and reporting documents.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, councillors and staff for the opportunity to speak for item 11.2. Specifically, I am speaking for the proposed expression of interest process for the Southwest Rocks Library project, as outlined in the draft operational plan. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge that Council has recognised what our community has known for many years. The current Southwest Rocks Library space does not meet the standards for the physical library facilities as outlined by the Library Council of New South Wales. Our library is an important community asset. It serves young families, school-aged children, students, parents, grandparents, retirees, visitors and clubs. It is one of the few truly inclusive public spaces available to everyone, regardless of age, income or background. Yet, despite the important role it plays, the physical facility is constrained, undersized and unable to fully meet the needs of a growing community. Southwest Rocks continues to attract new residents and visitors. Population growth will only increase demand for the library services and physical facility. According to the New South Wales Library Council's standards, our current population size deserves a physical facility 3 times larger than the existing library. And when considering the population growth provided by Council, our future population of 8,000 residents deserves a minimum size library of 552 metres squared. These are not just lofty goals, but standards based on benchmarks already achieved by libraries in New South Wales with similar population size. The need for an improved library is not just a historical issue. It remains a persistent current and future issue that Council must deliver. What concerns many residents is not whether a library upgrade is needed. There is broad agreement on that point. The concern is whether this latest proposal will finally lead to a successful outcome. Over the years, significant effort has been invested in exploring options for a new library and community hub. We understand concept plans were prepared, specialist assistance from architects was offered, and grant funding was considered. However, these efforts were ultimately unsuccessful due to uncertainties surrounding location and other project constraints. The result is that our community has seen years of discussion, investigation, planning and proposals, but very little visible progress. Today, Council appears to have identified a more workable pathway forward through expansion of the existing library site, including 18 to 22 Landsborough Street, and the proposed expression of interest process. That presents an opportunity. However, it also raises many questions, such as what exactly is Council seeking through the EOI process? How are you going to collaborate with the community on this? How will Council ensure this opportunity is promoted widely enough to attract high quality responses? What is the expected timeline for the EOI process from planning to building? These questions matter because the success or failure of this process may determine whether South West Rocks finally receives the library facility it has needed for many years. For that reason, I respectfully ask Council to undertake a rigorous community engagement process before and throughout the EOI process and include a realistic timeline that includes the building and delivery phase of our much needed modern library facility. This engagement should include key stakeholders. The purpose of this engagement and timeline should not simply be consultation after decisions have already been made. It should be an opportunity to clearly explain the process, identify community priorities, answer questions, and build public confidence in the direction Council is taking. Transparency is essential. The community should understand what Council is seeking from potential proponents. Equally important is ensuring that the opportunity reaches the widest possible audience. If Council genuinely wants innovative and high quality proposals, then the EOI must be promoted well beyond the Macleay Valley. I ask Council to publicly outline how it intends to advertise this opportunity, both locally and externally. The broader the reach, the greater the likelihood of attracting proposals that can deliver meaningful benefits for our community. I dream of the parent-teacher meeting when I can confidently recommend the library to families, an attractive, efficient and functional space where they can access the internet for their child's learning and borrow from a large selection of early reading books. I dream of the day where our local clubs I look forward to the day when I can take my own children to a library space in South West Rocks where they can actually use a restroom instead of squatting on the grass outside. Our local book clubs deserve a space where they are not crowded around a table in the children's section trying to discuss their adult themes, whilst my small children try to squeeze past and look at picture books. South West Rocks deserves all of these opportunities, and the only thing holding them back is Council's commitment to finally building the appropriate space we deserve now and in the future. I don't just speak on behalf of myself as a mother, primary teacher and advocate. I'm backed by several groups in South West Rocks who are passionate about working together on a clear process, transparent communication, meaningful engagement and genuine commitment to delivery. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. You timed that impeccably well. Are there any questions from councillors? Councillor Coburn.
Hey, Sarah, thanks so much for coming in and speaking to us about that. It is an important issue for South West Rocks. You are part of quite a few groups and a school teacher locally. Can you tell me what ideas have been thrown out amongst the groups that you're part of, and what sort of discussions have you had and what ideas have you got?
Thank you for your question, Julie. We've got lots of ideas specifically around responding to the problems that library grants have faced. So often one of the responses was that we couldn't afford a new facility because it would increase the FTE from 0.6 to 3, and then that would be 250,000 years extra per annum. But there are other opportunities like spaces in our community that already exist where they could facilitate a larger library physical space. So including the new high performance sports centre at the fields in South West Rocks, that remains empty, and it's a great space that's much larger than the existing library at the moment that could be potentially used, as well as having volunteers to staff those extra days if it was to increase in time that was needed to gain funding.
And how do you feel, you are a school teacher? How do you feel a better library facility would complement your role in the education system?
It would definitely make families feel more empowered to take on their responsibility as developing their kids' potential. It's really important for our community as a whole and the people that we attract to our area. So for every family in need who needs to use the library because they have limited access to the internet or computers or books, there's another family that in the higher end of town that will leave because our facility doesn't provide the standard that they would expect for their family. So they're more likely to move town or not engage in the library facility, which then limits the demand that is currently happening. So people aren't using the library as much as they would if it was something that was attractive, sustainable, and easy to use.
And just as a follow-up to that, do you feel that I know that it is a little library that we have currently in Southwest Rocks, is it really popular amongst the local people in its current state even?
Yeah, since starting this project, I've had a lot of conversations, and I am surprised that lots of people do love our library and that it is a tiny little area. And we also have a lot of people from diverse experiences. Like our library was used during the floods last year because Arakoon experienced a week-long blackout. So there were a lot of people camped up in the library with their laptops almost sitting on each other's laps. It's a diverse space, and it's also one that could definitely be improved for people with disabilities. Like I've taken a pram in there, which it was hard to fit in. So I couldn't imagine people who come to my school who are in wheelchairs being able to access that service. So it definitely needs to be improved, as well as the toilet. There's no toilet.
Councillor Pakes.
In your discussions, thanks for coming along and presenting and showing some passion about the Valley. That's fantastic. We need more people doing that. Specifically to the concepts you've discussed previously, in my travels in other countries, they use libraries in different ways. They use it as a art gallery. They use it as a visitor information centre. They use it as a cafe even. So is that something that you've explored as an idea that be more than one function?
Absolutely. It's definitely, when I say library and the physical facility, I'm more inclined to think of it as a community hub for a large range of services. We have looked at Yamba Library and why they've been able to get something happening up there that's a lot more modern, and it is because it is a shared service. So it could be things like having a space for TAFE students or partnering with a university who might be interested in funding a regional area, or definitely open to lots and lots of opportunities. And that's why we're asking, I'd like to put forward the fact that we would like that community engagement, because there is the potential there to create something that really is what the community needs, and it will be sustainable because it is so inclusive if we have that community engagement.
I absolutely agree with community being the answer. What has the country club had any previous dealings with concept plans or anything that's been put to you in your knowledge around the library or community space?
The country club out at the sports fields that own the High Performance Centre, all that I know in terms of their role in the High Performance Centre is that they're handing it back to council. So I'm not sure how much they would be able to manage or say that we're able to use that space. There are definitely other people in the community who look at that empty space and really want to use it, like Southwest Rocks Preschool want to run a mother's group or a play group out of that space. So it is something that people walk past and go, ooh, what's going on here? Well, how can we benefit people in our community with this empty space? So, and we would, if there was a library in there, it would be a space for everyone. So we would be happy to have the Southwest Rocks Preschool share that space. And that's another reason why I'm so advocating for this is because as a teacher, I would love to be running workshops and things, not just for school-age children, but for retirees. I can't really run a tech-savvy retiree club with just 2 computers at the public library.
I think my question was probably more around an individual concept plan external of that building. Has there been any other community-bred individual concept plans for a library in South West Rocks?
I have started discussions with the Sport and Rec group that initially got the funding or the grant for the High Performance Centre, but I'm not aware of any other outside.
Councillor Wyatt.
Yeah. Thank you for thank you for that. We got a copy of that presentation too?
I can send one.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Thank you for that presentation as well. Library. I mean, I remember going to the library when I had no money whatsoever, and you could go to the toy library, and it was a place to go. And as a teacher, you would see a diverse community in South West Rocks of advantage and disadvantage in your school. And I think from my daughter lives out there, you probably got an increase in numbers of school kids there. So, I mean, and the library is important. What services or what spaces, enclosed and safe spaces, are currently available for young children with their parents and carers in South West Rocks?
The library is one. There are a number of halls, and hopefully we don't add to the number of halls in South West Rocks, but you do have to pay to use the halls. The country club has an indoor play place, but you have to pay to purchase something to use that space. They also have the bowling downstairs, but you have to pay for that space. I guess maybe the shelter shed with a barbecue area would probably be the only other covered area. And South West Rocks has plenty of great outdoor areas for families and everyone, but yeah, it's very limited to places where it's free, it's covered, it's protected from the weather, and it also adds to like the people's learning and people's ability to contribute to the economy because they're learning and they're interested and they're engaging with community activities that are happening outside.
Are there any further questions, councillors? I hear none. Thank you for your presentation. I will now have Daniel Collings from ERISA speaking for item 11.4, Kempsey Development Control Plan. Thank you for being so patient, Mr. Collings.
Thank you. I won't keep you too long at this time of night. Miss Mayor, councillors and staff, I'm talking to you on 11.4. I'm for the DCP. When ERISA first came to this region 3 years ago, we sat with council, worked collaboratively, but we were definitely deciphering and translating the old or current DCP and trying to piece together the provisions that tied back to a lot of them Port Macquarie Council. So this DCP, I commend council staff for going through it. I know it's definitely, having read it quite a few times, is not a short document, but it's definitely, from our end, makes things a lot clearer. Although we've finished Crescent Head and have got that project finished and done, we've got some lessons learned from that, but we're still in the region and looking at the planning stages in a project at Stewart's Point. So we definitely like having the surety and clarity that this document gives us to progress new developments moving forward. In saying that, there are a few areas that haven't yet been updated. Council staff took on our written submission and did make a few changes, which was great. So there's some references which tie back to the AusSpec designs. So from our end, again, that's, I guess, sits below the DCP or behind it. We haven't had the chance to get as involved with that as the DCP. Again, it gives clarity and a lot more surety than referencing the Port Macquarie specifications, which was largely previously done. But there's still lessons learned, and we still want to work with council on them. For instance, at Crescent Head, we've got a whole major road where we might be relocating or replacing all our street trees we've just put in. That's because there's an issue in the previous DCP and it's not fixed in this DCP, where the street trees are in the same alignment as the water main. So that's something we're proactively trying to sort out so that that issue doesn't get replicated in a project like Stewart's Point. Likewise, in this DCP, there's talk of controls for small lots at Stewart's Point and across the whole region. There's talk of trying to diversify our lots, even in the housing plan. So that's great. But again, I think we need the tools to be able to do that appropriately and as council decides what is appropriate moving forward. So for instance, there's no rear lanes or laneways or small streets that may facilitate small lots or garages at the back of a lot, which most other LGAs would have. But otherwise, they're probably the only two areas where we see a real lot to tidy up in the DCP. We are open to continuing to work with council to keep going through that and love the idea of our housing options improving as time goes on and council tightens up these documents. So we thank you for your time today and our opportunity to give input into the DCP as it moves forward. That's it for me. So any questions, happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Are there any questions from councillors? Councillor Pakes.
Yeah, in your straight talk to a councillor, tell me your solution to the offset between the water main and the trees. I've come across it myself. What's your solution? Tell me what to do.
That's one, to be honest, there's no straight talk from mine. It's council tell me what to do. But the directors sitting here need to have the debate. It's one where something's got to miss out because there's only so much room in a road to fit. So most other councils have that alignment. In a DCP in Maitland, I've got another project I'm working on. They've got the water main shown under the tree in one tidy alignment with all the electrical and the like. It is just a debate between the landscapers and wanting the amenity of street trees, which is great. The water main and the water mains noting that they have to have provision that they're small trees, the root ball's controlled. It could be as
like the clarity.
Yeah, we like the clarity. It's more. There's just a few areas that need to be tightened up. It's a lot better than what we had before, which was largely Port Macquarie standards and a mix match of them. It's more just, like I said, going into the detail that standard doesn't actually show the water main and the street trees on one diagram. Getting that one diagram where you can see everything, and the same, it shows a traditional standard road that you'd see in Kempsey that's quite wide. And if you're going to consider realistically 300 square metre lots, like, is there ability to put a garage at the back so that they look more like a terrace or townhouse estate, which is what most other LGAs do? Again, that's not in the AusSpec docs, not for Kempsey. It is in other LGAs.
In the feedback from Stewart's Point, some of the questions were around block sizes along Grassy Head Road, etc. So I think it's a 40 hectare minimum, and they said, well, why can't we make it a 4 hectare minimum? Have you got any comments on? Have you read the public feedback?
I have, yeah.
What did you make of that? Given you've got specific interest in Stewart's Point area.
To be honest, I haven't looked that far north. Like I'm only involved in and Arissa's only involved in the southern area of the expansion area for Stewart's Point. I guess anecdotally, we're looking at some rural res lots that retain some of the existing vegetation and keep it in private ownership rather than public ownership, noting that council and national parks are not too eager to have extra assets on the book at the moment. So I could talk to the market in general and say that for rural res, there's obviously a market in this region for that product. Large lots.
Councillor Wyatt.
I would presume that you've seen quite a few of these development control plans in your work in other areas around the state of New South Wales. Just sort of generally speaking, how does the sort of the quality and the content of this one and the ease of use compared with other ones that you're working with?
We haven't started working with this one yet, obviously, but this one it's set up off the sort of state standards, I guess, like the AusSpec standards. So its quality is definitely there now and light years ahead of what's currently available before you have your meeting tomorrow and presumably endorse it. So that the new plan's good. I guess there's just these learning curves that we've got that experience already. Will come out where it just has to morph and go through that lessons learned process.
So you said, oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. Just Councillor Bain has to log off now, so I just want to give his apologies, but you can keep going, Councillor White.
So I guess you don't sort of have a benchmark of a standout. This is the gold star of DCP planning. And sort of, I guess, a scale of 1 to 10, like 10 being the gold standard. Where do you think this might fit?
For comparable councils that have got a rural leaning, I'd say probably Maitland's got quite a good DCP out of all the council areas I work in that are not huge areas with large urban areas like Kempsey. But in saying that, there's only those few areas where they've tied in everything back to one simplistic diagram where, like I said before, the landscape is consolidated with the water and the road and the footpath all on one plan rather than different sections where you can get into trouble with not cross-referencing them all.
Are there any further questions, councillors?
Yeah, just one.
Councillor Pakes.
Yeah, Councillor White's question prompted me to think about when I first looked at the DCP. I went around to Coffs Harbour and all the surrounding areas, Armidale, Tamworth, Coffs, Lismore. I didn't go as far as Maitland. I actually wish I did now you mentioned it. But I felt when I first read it that I didn't go far enough and wasn't simplified enough. Relative simplification compared to Maitland. Do you think, what's the volume of Maitland versus the volume of ours? And do you think there's more simplification that could happen in a review, 12, 18, 2 years down the track?
Starting the stretch, I'm not a town planner, I'm an engineer once upon a time. But I'd say Maitland and Kempsey are very similar now. I mean, I think the directors will be able to correct me, but there's sort of model provisions now where all the councils are more or less following the same formula. So I'd say the one thing in the Kempsey DCP that's a little light on, and I'm a engineer pictures person, is a bit more diagrams, but I note that the staff had responded to our submission saying they want to leave the diagrams in the standards as such, which as long as the diagrams are somewhere, I'm not too fussed, to be honest, as long as they're sort of consolidated diagrams where you can get all the info.
Thank you, Mr. Collings. If there's no further questions, thank you for coming along to our public forum today. And thank you to all our speakers for making the time and all. I now am closed.